I absolutely love telling stories, but I hate telling this one. My friend, her mother was in the hospital for double pneumonia, which is scary on its own. But couple that with aphasia, a loss of language, and we got the mixings for a potential disaster. It's 3 p.m., and the nurse comes into the room. She has a pill in her hand. She goes, "Ma'am, I need you to take your medication." She looks at the pill. No. And she tries to mutter something else. "Ma'am, you need to take your medication." No. And the daughter is sitting on the other end of the room. She walks over. She says, "Mom, what's going on here? You got to listen to the nurse. You got to take your medication." And she gives that look that mothers give when you've made the biggest mistake. And she knew that something was wrong. Even though her mom could not verbalize it, she knew there was a problem. This pill, this doesn't look like the pill my mom normally takes. Could there be a switch here? Well, we have all sorts of generic medication at the hospital, but I can go check at the pharmacist. So she leaves, 10 minutes pass. She comes back, and she is blushing. "I am so sorry. Pharmacy gave me the wrong pill." Can you imagine if my friend wasn't there? She wasn't able to communicate for her mother. Imagine if this was you, one of your family members. What would you do? And I bet a lot of you in this room don't even have to imagine. This is a problem. So I would say this is my nemesis, poor healthcare communication. It is the battle that I am going to fight. And I always knew that I was going to be fighting some kind of villain someday. Because growing up, my name was not Nick. It was Batman. And, it totally made sense. I would come bounding down the stairs. I got this huge grin on my face. "Look, Mom, I'm Batman!" And I'm, dressed like this. And I took it one day a little step further. I grabbed a magic marker, and I started to go on my face. I was committed. I needed to help people. So I had to become the Dark Knight. It doesn't quite look right. I've worked on it a little bit since then. And I think something where, I'm 5 years old. I'm acting like a superhero. I think a lot of people, they grow up. They sort of lose this. I did not. I very much still want to be a superhero. Whether or not I am, that's totally another discussion. It's not an ego thing. I just really want to help people. But I think that you don't have to grow out of that either. You can still be a superhero. Why should we move away from that? Knowledge to me is like gadgets on a utility belt. Everything that I go out and I do, I'm learning, I'm engaging. And I see something, I'm like, that's interesting. And I'll boil it down, I'll condense it into a product that I can carry with me. So I got my utility belt here. So for an example, you're out on the beach. It's so nice. It's so cold outside, you're out on the beach. Just imagine. You decide to go for a swim. So you're swimming in the water. And you are one of the lucky 2,500 people in the world since 1580 to experience a shark attack. So you have a shark attack, and oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I got this giant death grip on me. How am I going to survive? And you remember that one day that you decided to stay inside on a beautiful summer day to watch Shark Week. And you're listening to these scientists tell you the best ways to avoid dying from a shark. And my favorite, if you just punch a shark in the nose, apparently it lets you go. You have this 1-ton killing machine that's attached to you. And for some reason, it'll let go if you punch it in the nose. So you try it, you punch the shark in the nose, and it lets you go. You just use shark repellent from your utility belt. I have a slight obsession with the 1960s Batman movie, if you couldn't tell. So this is directly from that scene. But you might think that the knowledge that you're picking up along the way doesn't mean anything. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but eventually you're going to find a use for it. So it's good to go through the process, boiling that down, and creating knowledge that you can use. And I call that, your brain is your utility belt. Use your brain, gather this. Fill it with utilities. Now, why am I a healthcare CEO? I started a healthcare company, I led with healthcare, but why am I a healthcare CEO? Well, it started when I recorded a metal album. I recorded a metal album and I loved the music so much that I needed to become a 3D animator so that I could make an animation for the album. I needed more utilities for my utility belt so I could accomplish the things I wanted to accomplish. So I went, got professionally certified in 3D animation and graphic design. Instead of going off to the liberal arts college I was expecting to, I'm like, I need more. I need more utilities. So I got a degree in computer engineering. I'm not good at math, and I'm not very good at science either, but that wasn't a problem. I wanted more utilities. So I urge you to go out, try and do the tough things. Do the things that you're not comfortable with, because some of those skills that you get along the way, you're going to be surprised in how you're going to use them. Fill your belt. Fill it with stuff that makes sense, and even the stuff that doesn't make sense. And what you need to do to tie it all together is you need to have a pretty rockin' belt buckle. Because otherwise, all the stuff, it just falls apart. If you don't have a belt buckle, that belt, even all the gadgets that you have on it, it's gonna drop off. For me, the belt buckle is a motto. It's up here. It's the other fellow first. Something I learned while I was in a summer camp. It was the motto of the summer camp. And it truly embodied sort of the way I wanted to capture information. I sort of didn't have perspective before I figured out this utility belt analogy, but it made sense. Why am I learning how to code? Why am I learning how to design? Why am I interested in improving healthcare communication? Why do I want to know how to punch a shark? This is all stuff because, maybe I'll have the opportunity to help someone. That's why I wanted to do it. And I urge you, it doesn't have to be this. This doesn't have to be your belt buckle. Find one that makes sense for who you are, but let it drive the utilities, the gadgets that you pick up along the way. Design an application. That was the senior design project that I chose from a list. Why did I choose design an iPad application for post-stroke patients so they could be able to communicate? Why did I choose that? I didn't really have a healthcare background. I wanted to help people, so it made sense. When I'm looking at all the lists of different topics, it sprung out to me. And I started to think, how could I use this utility belt? Well, I could code, I could do some engineering work, I could do some design work. I could record audio to literally give people a voice. So I've got my metal album, I've got my 3D animation and graphic design going, I've got my computer engineering. It made sense to me. And I could use sort of my Batman belt buckle to go out and accomplish that. And I think it's tough. It's tough to understand where you're going to be, where you're going to stumble upon this. But you got to start somewhere. And you never know when you're going to find this villain. I stumbled upon this villain in the list of senior design projects. I didn't know I wanted to do healthcare communication. The story I told you at the beginning was a story I found out about last year, after I had already done this project. I met people, and you engage with people. So that's why you need that utility belt. That's why you need to capture that, because you never know when you're going to find that villain, and you've got to be prepared for when you do. And prepared we did. We prepared so hard. We're in the Batcave, in the basement of a classroom on campus, and we're thinking, all right, how are we going to solve this problem? How are we going to make an application? And we knew that we had to find out why we needed to build this. Why is this project even here? And we couldn't do that in the Batcave. We had to go out. We had to get some perspective. So we ran right into Gotham. We ran right into Gotham, into one of the best hospitals in the world. And we asked, is it possible for us to shadow your stroke ward nurses? It was so simple. We just asked, can we just be a part of your environment? And they said yes. Well, that's pretty cool. So we went in and we shadowed these nurses, and two things became immediately clear. One, every patient is incredibly unique. So there is no way that you're going to design one application that's going to work for all of them. It's like having a shoe company that only makes one shoe. It just isn't going to fit. So we needed a platform that was going to work for all patients, that was going to be personalized, customized. The second thing we noticed was that nurses are inefficient. And that is no knock on nurses. They are incredible, and they are incredible at what they do. But there is a systemic problem. And that problem is poor communication. There's a reason why they're inefficient. They don't have the tools to be successful. Poor communication in healthcare is the Joker to my Batman. It is the enigma of my Riddler. And did you know that 30% of a nurse's day is spent with patients? Only 30% of a nurse's day is actually spent in a patient's room. 70% of their day is spent walking in between rooms trying to figure out what to do. So if I come to a patient's room, chances are I don't know what that patient needs. I find out, I leave, and I come back. That communication gap is there. Then I may need to coordinate care, find the right clinician personnel to be able to facilitate that request. And then I have to perform some documentation on that. So 70% of my day is doing those activities. Also, there are 3 times more preventable adverse events due to poor communication. And this costs us $12 to $20 billion a year in the US hospital system. That's purely on things related to poor communication in healthcare. So not only are we getting poor care, but we're paying a ton of money because of it. So this is a big problem. So why is it such a mess? How do we currently communicate in hospitals? Well, we've got what's called a nurse call button. It's a push button that can really only do 2 things. It turns a light on and it turns a light off, or a noise or whatever. It's the same button for I need a glass of water and I can't breathe. That's an issue. How do you prioritize? How do you know? If you went to Starbucks and you had to wait in line for an hour and a half to get a $20 cup of lukewarm coffee, would you go to that Starbucks? You probably wouldn't. You'd probably go to another coffee shop somewhere else because that's a pretty terrible experience. This is the choice that we have in healthcare. You pretty much go where the ambulance takes you. And you're pretty much going to deal with the doctor or the hospital that your insurance provider is going to cover. You bite the bullet because you have to. And it's what you expect. And I think that's unacceptable. We should expect more. We should treat it to the same standards that we do our consumer market. Don't stand for this. And I think it's on the other side as well. We, as healthcare providers, have to do a better job of putting that patient first. This patient is your customer. Let's treat them with respect. Now, here's a plot twist. There are 99,000 deaths every year due to hospital-based infections. Okay, what does this mean? What is this dastardly villain? So people are dying because of things they did not have before they got to the hospital. So where do these infections live? Where is this dangerous villain? Well, turns out that our friend, the call button, happens to be one of the most infected areas within a hospital room. So some of these infections are living for up to months on these buttons, and they're right next to you, and you're interacting with them. And 99,000 people die every year because of hospital-based infections. I'm not saying call buttons are the result of all of them, but that's pretty disgusting. So why is it such a disgusting mess? I mean, this is pretty simple, right? Well, let's look at the call button sort of through time. It began as a button. This is one button that turned on and off. And then it became a button with more buttons. And then it became a button with more buttons that talked. And then it became a button with more buttons that talked and controlled your television. It's covered with so many discrete surfaces, such small little buttons that it's nearly impossible to sanitize. And some of these infections can live for up to 3 months on that surface. What if it was flat? What if it was easier to clean? What if this communication tool was better protected against infection? So we're not even just talking about communication anymore. We're just talking about better healthcare. And what does that mean? I think when you design for that patient, we need a patient-centered experience. So when we design at Verbal, we only ask one question. With everything that we create, how can we make the patient's life better? That's what we need to ask. Is adding this button, is that making it better for the patient? Or is that just being better than the previous button? Are we adding this feature because it's better for the patient? Or is it just better than the previous button? We need to ask this question because we need to do what's right for the patient. This is what I call human-first healthcare. It's when you say that I am going to solve this problem for the patient, not for the button. When you solve for the patient, everything falls into place. Remember that belt buckle, this one right here, where I said it's the other fellow first? It's the reason why I think that collaboration is the most important form of competition. Teamwork is the way that you solve these massive problems. You need to be able to work together. You need to be able to look at that patient and understand their need. So you got to leave the Batcave to collaborate. You can't do it in a basement. You have to go out in the real world. We would not be where we are today if we didn't go have conversations with nurses, if we didn't understand the patient's story, if we did not meet the people who inspired us to achieve our product's true mission. You need to get out there. You need to collaborate. And because we did that, we listened. We put on our bat ears and we listened. And we learned that patients needed simple design. They needed something that was easy to use. So when we made our application, up to 9 picture-based icons on a screen that are personalized for each patient, for each scenario. We kept it simple. We knew that family members, patients, nurses, doctors, whoever is part of this care continuum, they need to be connected. So we made it based in the cloud. So regardless of what facility you're in, regardless of who you want to be able to communicate with, you can be connected. And that's because we listened to what the patient wants. We start with the patient. So when you design for a patient, the ecosystem is happier. Administrators have better access to data. Nurses understand what a patient needs prior to getting to the room. And most importantly, patients are empowered. Instead of being told what to do, you're in the driver's seat. You're telling us what you need. But There is no one solution. There's no one person, no one company who could possibly solve this problem. It has to be a collaboration. It has to be a team effort. There's a reason why there is an Avengers. There's a reason why there is a Justice League, why Batman needs Robin. Because the big villains need collaboration to solve them. So do not wait for the change to come to you, because you are the superhero on the way. Get your utility belt and make the world a better place. Thank you.